Let's play some word association.
Sure.
I'm going to give you some names of people who were involved creatively in WCW. Tell me what your feelings are on them. J.J. Dillon.
JJ's old school, but I think he has really good knowledge. I think that he never was a person that like would blurt. He always digested and added. You know, I think he was a very good sous chef.
Gotcha. Right.
Wasn't the main
back
guy.
up for you pretty.
Yeah,
pretty
but
well,
he was good.
Johnny Ace.
Wasn't involved a lot creatively back then with us. He was more kind of brought in to just kind of. I think what and I don't know this for a fact, but I think that he sat down with Siegel and said, these guys with these high price contracts are showing up to TV whenever the fuck they want to, and we can put a finding program in and probably get 10% of that money back. So I think that's kind of
okay.
Yeah, he kind of.
Sullivan, someone who was certainly part of the creative.
Oh, geez, I mean, I think he could. I think if the WWE were to put him in any kind of capacity right now, the program would improve.
Greg Gagne, man, apparently responsible for getting Hulk Hogan over there.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things that Greg did. I remember one time in passing when I was Master Blaster, he just walked by me at center stage. He said, "New World Order." And I just said to myself, like, what does that mean? Is this an Illuminati? Like, what? And then I found out years later that he had actually not only booked the entire WCW NWO angle, but had booked the Japan angle prior to that.
That preceded the NWO.
So just pure genius.
Okay.
I mean, anybody that could actually even get in the ring and have a body and a fucking skull like that is, that's just balls. I don't give a fuck who your dad is. Just to show up and to go over and look like that, that's just balls.
Okay. I'll give props for that. Bob Ryder.
Bob was an organizational guy. Bob was, I think he had, I know he had strong opinions, but he was never this I think.
Okay.
Sometimes you got to have that.
Dusty.
He and I went back and forth so many different times, but the one thing about Dusty was, he was like a fucking guy that threw a knuckleball. He could fucking throw that ball all day long. His elbow, you don't like that idea? You don't like that one? It wasn't like he sit over in Dusty be over there like.
What percentage of them were viable, though, of the knuckle? What could you hit?
It's like kind of a Hoyt Wilhelm in his 50s. You can get a few of them.
Okay. You could bat 200, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay.
But at 200, that's pretty damn
that's
good.
That's
yeah.
good in Major League.
I loved, we had words before because he, pulled a couple of things while I had, where they went back to the office and booked and we went to Atlanta and, just different things where they like him and Annette and Craig Leathers went and booked their own show.
What do you mean book their own show?
Like they booked their Monday Night Nitro and we booked ours, and they were gonna come in and say who has the better show.
So two teams show up on Monday.
Yeah.
With two separate formats.
Yeah.
Who makes that call? Eric, I guess, right?
There was no call to be made.
Okay.
I'd already kiboshed the call before I said I don't have a problem going home. I get paid the same.
Did you have words with him over it, or?
I pulled him in Atlanta in Phillips Arena. I said, "Don't you ever do that again? I'll cut your fucking head off."
What does he say?
Just looked at me like, eh.
Bill Banks.
Never really worked with him.
Bill Dundee.
Dundee was managing the Hollywood Blondes, and I was traveling with Austin and Pillman and Dundee. Doing the B-Towns in WCW, and that motherfucker had some knowledge. I never, but he had knowledge. And I'll tell you another thing. To be a vicious heel and be 5'4", you've
got to be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got, I mean, and fucking be believable.
Yeah.
You know, it's like Sullivan. You know, my son will watch fucking Sullivan tapes from Japan where he just, you know, just brutalizes people to this day. You know,
Disco.
good. I mean, I think he's one of those guys. He might throw 1,000 things out there. One might stick, but it's going to be good.
Ric Flair.
Rick was Rick had the pencil for a while when there was, to me it just felt at the time he got it, there was so much, like it was between him and Dusty and everybody. It was that whole nepotism, you know, this kid's son, this guy was like kind of that Charlotte territory was kind of taking over WCW. I didn't think they looked out for Sting very well. They weren't really looking out for Luger. But I mean, as far as knowing the business, I mean, there's nobody knows the business better than Ric Flair. I just think, you know, that Rick came from an era where you take care of yourself, especially when you're the man that's going from territory to territory. You know, and you've got to, you know, you got to draw on each one of those territories. So his perception and his game plan and his booking style, you know, go with what he was doing. You know, going from territory to territory and being the man. It's not being stationary, you know, in a territory for 4 years and having, so I mean that, you know, for what, I mean, he was brilliant at what he did, and there's nobody that's done it better before, I'm sure, you know, or ever afterwards. So, I mean, Rick has that brilliance, but it's just a different, you know, it's apples and oranges.
Yes. Jeremy Borash?
Good mind. I mean, I think he had a good mind.
Terry Taylor.
That's great.
Vince Russo.
Vince, I liked Vince Russo. I liked Vince Russo because Vince Russo had a very different approach. And Vince Russo, at this time, see, when they brought him in, Vince had young boys. And and Vince was smart enough to watch his sons and see that they had absolutely no fucking attention span. So by the time you cut a 10-minute promo, they were done. They were gone.
Yeah.
And they didn't give a fuck about work rate, and he knew that. So, you know, to have a 5-segment match, you know, it was like they don't want to see a 4-minute match. Why are we going to give them a 21-minute match?
Why did people not understand what you're saying? There was a very big backlash against Vince, and yeah, man, people go so far as to say, you know,
well,
he killed aspects of.
Oh yeah, but when you go down to Atlanta, and you have his accent, it's the only thing missing is a blue uniform and a torch.
Mike Graham.
Good mind. You know, his dad had an incredibly successful territory, Florida Championship, learned well from his father. I always liked him because he was never, like a lot of people, man, when you get in a hole, you get doom and gloom. He was always so upbeat. He was, I mean, you got to have that, you know, the glass half full guy. And he's that guy.
Hulk Hogan.
When it comes to the aspect of drawing money, like what works. I mean, he has a steadfast, but he also, he had gotten stagnated, and then like being with Scott and I, like we kind of gave him like our opinion. He took our opinion and put it with his opinion, and it kind of changed him a little bit, not a lot, but I think that, you know, that transition from those, like from that character to Hollywood to that in-between character, like he went out and stole WrestleMania with Rock, stole WrestleMania with Vince. I mean, he stole like several big shows, you know, and it was him. It was Hulk doing that.
I don't think this can be overstated enough. I've talked to you on camera about it. I talked to Bischoff about it. There's no earthly reason that Hulk Hogan, the Hulk Hogan I grew up with, the only Hulk Hogan that anybody knew in 1995 or whatever, whatever, was the big, overblown promos to the point of unbelievable, maybe, because that's, we need cartoons in the 80s. There's no earthly reason that Hulk Hogan should have succeeded in the model of what the NWO was. No way that square peg should have went in the round hole. Yet it did, and he was able to run with that, and phase 2 of Hogan's career.
But they also did a good job. They did a really good job. The first time we went down to cut NWO promos, we went down there, and Scott and I have always just talked in sound bites. And we were, hey, babe, bro, babe, we were going back and forth being chill. And Hogan just went on like a 5-minute rant. And every time the ball was in his court, he just, brother, let me tell you, brother, let me tell you, son, brother. So we got done for like the first 2 hours, and we went out, and there was a picnic bench out there. And I looked at Scott, and I said, dude. And he looked at me like, we're looking at each other like, this is not going to fucking work. So Eric, who's very fucking smart, was like, walked out there like, he goes, we can make this work. He goes, edit-wise, we can make this work.
Right. And
they did that. So they just sound those black and white interviews. Then when Hogan went out there, he started to modify what he was doing to the point where it was, he did a lot more talking and a lot less brothering.
One could tell that it was trimmed to be favorable. But something I always saw that I don't even know if it's true, I never asked anybody, was the decision to go black and white, shaky, grainy, distracting. Was it to kind of put a haze over the face and all that shit that Hogan was doing? Was the decision made after filming?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Good decision.
I think Neil Pruitt had a lot to do. Neil Pruitt had a lot of things. That's a name that will never get enough credit for that era of pro wrestling, was Neil Pruitt. Huh. He came up with the logo. He came up with the New World. That's him saying New World Order on that music. That was him. Like he did a lot of really innovative. He was very, he was important to the company.
Eric Bischoff.
Eric Bischoff is, when you lay something out to him, he has to be able to, you have to lay it out like you're looking at a television. He's completely visual. If you can lay it out for him, and as you lay it out, he's looking at it and seeing it happen, he'll know, like, okay, yeah, that's money or that blows. If you like shoot it from on top and do the specifics of the moves and all that, he just wants like, what are you guys trying to do here? What's the concept? But there were so many things that we did. Like I thought when we took the Steiners and turned their car over. Like my idea for that angle was that the Steiners would press charges. Like like people bought that on that Saturday afternoon show.
Right.
And it'd be a case where the tape that X-Pac had in his video was the only tape of it. That goes into the evidence, and we go in, and it's back and forth, and it's the artist renditions of the Steiners on the stands, and have like they use the CNN people to say this court case is going on, and finally when it's like time for the verdict, they go to put the tape in, and the tape's blank, and they turn around, the guy that's in the property room peels his Atlanta cop thing, and there's the NWO gimmick, and it's you do 8 weeks of TV without touching, go off to another angle, and now you build this thing up, and the Steiners want to kill you. And now you've got CNN, you use these things around you. Yeah. They got so much shit over what happened on Saturday. On Monday, after they flipped their car, the Steiners came out and kicked the shit out of us. I'm like, well, what the fuck did we spend 5 hours shooting that shit for?
Well, so all right. So why? Why did it happen?
Because
Who was impatient?
they just, if they got like, if anybody from the other tower said, "Are you guys killing people over there?" Like the Rey Mysterio dart thing, all that shit was nixed immediately. Oh, no, there's nothing going on. We'll just move from Disney.
This is standards and practices people,
Whoever.
or
ballless.
when you say the other tower, just explain what you mean.
Yeah, I mean them, but they also just they never wanted wrestling.
Right.
And God, when Time Warner got into Turner, that was bad enough. And then when AOL got in, now you
Right.
got a bunch of silicon heads.
Yeah, that was
they
the
don't give
beginning
a
of the
fuck.
end.
Yeah,
Ed
but I
Ferrara.
killed it
Ed Ferrara.
because I bought AOL.
Ed Ferrara.
Ed was good. Ed was good. Ed, but I think Ed and Vince were both better together than separate. I thought they were. I thought when they brought them in, they were really going to do something. They cut their balls in 3 weeks, and I told them it was coming too, because I was in the transition party as they came in, and then they was just like one day they just told me, "You're not going to be in the room," because they knew I'd already sided with Ed and Vince.
So you knew at that point.
Oh,
that,
I knew right then.
Yeah.
I mean, they had. I tell you, it was about 3 weeks, and they just said, "You guys ain't getting a run."
And they'd committed to all that money. They did that with everybody. They
Yeah,
committed to a lot of money. Kevin Nash.
Kevin Nash. How was he as a booker?
How was he as a booker?
I guess, from my standpoint, I like when I watch David Copperfield make the Statue of Liberty disappear. I'm under the presumption that everybody on Earth knows that it's really not disappearing,
Right.
and I try not to fucking like completely insult the intelligence of the people that are watching that aren't an iron lung, but.
Is that a Chief J?
Chief Jay's drama. Love you, Chief. But at the same time, I mean, I think there has to be like pop culture. There has to be like we tried to get hip hop in, like they cut all these deals with like Master P's guys and all this. I'm like, I just sit there and just, you don't understand. Placate this for 5 weeks. So we can have I said we get Master P to perform at the Superdome with his nephew. I said then we get Snoop in Atlanta. That's all we want out of this deal. Those 2 performances, and that's all we want. We don't want to have an angle with and here's Master P at that point who's worth about $50 million, and Eric lets him sit down in that log cabin in the fucking front of it, and they're looking at me like, dude, I thought you were fucking cool. Like they got us down here like a bunch of ham and eggers. Yeah. And I was thinking like this is not going to be good.
What were your goals when you were put on? What was something you wanted to see in a large fashion happen?
There was so much upheaval with the underneath, like Benoit, all those guys, and they all said that we were holding him down. And the first pay-per-view that I booked, Benoit beat Sid for the world title, and he left the next TV.
Right.
He won it Sunday. He left Cincinnati TV on Monday. So it was one of those deals where, I said to them, because they all, vanilla midget and all that shit, all that is just to fuck with you. That's just to fuck with you. That's just keep you in check. Because you are a midget. To me, you're a midget. I can say that. You can't look at me and fucking say, no, I'm not. I'm the same size as you. So that's to keep you in check. But at the same time, you know what? Fuck it. Nothing else has worked. Let's give all these guys a shot. I was going to run with all of them.
Were you going to run with them, or are you going to go? Go ahead.
Why would I put Rey Mysterio over in Sacramento?
Yeah. Well, that's where Ray's, special maybe.
Of course he is. But my whole thing was, when I took the book, I put Rey Mysterio over because I said, guess what? If second biggest guy in the company can put the smallest guy over, I don't want to hear another fucking word about I'm not putting those little guys over. Because I knew that was going to be the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Nash, No, fuck, I don't know. Because we ain't pushed him. They carried the fucking show for the first hour for fucking 2 years. Let's fucking give him a shot.